altruism, and cooperation, right? Then at the end of the last class, we talked about this, like prisoner's dilemma. So everyone understands why this is a dilemma. It is not an easy question, right? So as an individual, it's better to defect, right? Expected value is higher, right? But when everybody makes best decision for them, then as a group, they ended up making worse decisions, right? Right? So that's the dilemma, right? So why this is called as prisoner's dilemma game? So because it's related to classic story of two prisoners, right? They were interrogated in a separate room. The question is whether they stick to their original story or betray the other person, right? So the interrogator asked, okay, the other person, he told already the truth. Now it's your turn to tell the truth, right? But if they collaborate and don't tell the truth, then they will win eventually, right? But if one of them tells the truth, then so essentially same situation like this, right? Collaboration, best result as a group, effect, worst result as a group. But like I said, it's really difficult to collaborate in this kind of situation. As an individual, payoff is better for defect than for collaboration, right? Then how can we increase cooperation in this kind of situation, right?
How you frame it?
Yeah, framing is one thing. What's the most important factor in terms of whether you are going to collaborate or defect? When are you going to collaborate?
When you feel you can trust the other person.
Yeah, trust the other person. So the other person, the other player, probably that's the most important factor, right? The most important determinant of whether people will collaborate or cooperate or defect is their beliefs about the other player, right? If they think they can trust the other player, then cooperation. If they can't, probably not, right? How about some other factors? Other factors than the other player. Framing is one thing, right? Can you think of any other factor that may increase cooperation or even defect? Gender? In what way? Toward the female, maybe? So the in-group versus out-group, right? So probably people will cooperate more to someone they think is similar to themselves, right? Female, female, male, male. Not just the personality or internal disposition of the other player, your disposition, your internal disposition is also important, right? If you are competitive, probably you are not going to collaborate, right? You don't want it to be exploited, right? So competitiveness of you, as well as competitiveness of the other player. And then framing. So in one study, the game was introduced as Wall Street game. So there is a winner and loser. Right? In another version of this game, the same game was introduced as a community game. How we can help each other, right? Obviously, people tend to collaborate, cooperate, if the game was introduced as a community game. But people tend to compete the fact when the game was introduced as Wall Street game. Exactly the same game, the framing is different, and then their behaviors are different, right? And then there are some cultural differences. In certain culture, people tend to help each other. But in another type of culture, people tend to compete each other, right? So cultural beliefs can influence rates of cooperation, right? And then this prisoner's dilemma game is a good way to investigate cross-cultural differences, right? But it's slightly complex, right? So you have to calculate the individual payoff, then payoff as a group as well. So they came up with different type of economic decision-making game. So like prisoner's dilemma game, ultimatum game is also decision-making game. Right? Money involved. Right? But here, the procedure is much simpler. So there are two players. One of them is the divider. So the divider will be given a some amount of money. For example, $12 or $20, right? Then all they have to do is divide the money between themselves and the other player, right? You can take $20, giving nothing to the other one, or you can be very fair. You can take $10, giving $10 to the other player, right? And then the other player have two options. They can either accept the offer or they can reject the offer. Right? From the perspective of the recipient, it's always better to accept. If they turn down, they reject, they will receive nothing, right? No matter how unfair the offer is, it's always better to accept, right? Even when the distributor paid $19 and give back to you just only $1, it's still better. $1 is still better than nothing, right? So if you are the recipient, it's always better to accept, right? Even if the offer is extremely unfair, like $19 versus $1. But many people will reject that offer because it's unfair, right? We are playing the same game. Why the other player gets $19 and me only getting $1, right? And then if you are the distributor, this is a kind of good measure of how cooperative you are. If you are fair, probably even split, right? 10, right? If you are competitive, maybe you can take. You wanted to find out the minimum offer the other player may accept, right? You wanted to have more than the other player, right? So it's kind of a good measure of competitiveness or fairness, right? So researchers use this test, tested a lot of people across different cultures. And then what they found is this. A certain culture, interdependence is required. Like I said in the previous lecture, think about farming, agriculture. Collaboration is necessary, right? As opposed to hunter-gatherers, right? So that's just individual activity, right? Or sometimes there is a competition between hunters, right? If you can get deer, and the other people may not, right? So interdependent society, they tend to be more fair in this kind of ultimatum game. And then they also tend to reject any unfair offer, right? But competitive cultures, they tend to accept even unfair offer because they understand that it's better than nothing, right? You can then the offer tends to be unfair. So they wanted to take more than the other player. So there are some cross-cultural differences. Well, obviously, in this kind of game, you wanted to know about the optimal strategy, how you can get more monies, or how you can maximize your gain. Right? Let's assume that you're playing Prisoner's Dilemma game, right? Like this, right? What will be your first move? Cooperate or defect? How many of you wanted to cooperate initially? Or how many of you think that cooperation is a good move in the first trial? So some of you think that it's a good move. Then what if the other player defect in the first round? So you exploit it if you cooperate, right? And then second round, then what is your option? Are you going to keep collaborating, or now are you going to defect? Let's assume that you cooperate in the first round and the other player defect. What are you going to do? Cooperate still.
Are we playing with the same player?
Yeah, same player.
Oh, okay.
Are you still?
No.
No.
No. So defect. Okay, so second round you defect, right? But surprisingly, the other player cooperate, right? Now critical third round. Then what are you going to do? Cooperate or defect? Right, cooperate. Right. So the best strategy for this kind of game is this: tit for tat strategy. There are lots of computer simulation, a lot of studies using this kind of game. Best strategy is this. Very simple. You should start with cooperation. In order to show them you are willing to cooperate, you have good intention. So you have to set up positive expectations. So first round, you have to cooperate. And then you just imitate what the other player did in the previous round. He cooperated or she cooperated, then you cooperate. She or he defected, then you need to defect. So just imitate the other player. So when they defect, you have to punish them, right? But if they, after the defection, if they somehow decide to cooperate, you have to be very cool. You have to have very short memory. Oh, he just cooperated, or she just cooperated in the previous one. So I will reciprocate, right? So that's the best strategy in this kind of game. So start with good intention, and then very cool. Be very cool, right? Any questions about this one? Right. Any question about the chapter 14 then? That's it for chapter 14. But since this is the last class, I wanted to have some sort of summary about social psychology. There are so many things. By the way, this is not relevant to your final exam, right? This is just kind of summary, right? That well, it may be helpful, maybe not, but it is not relevant to the final exam, but hopefully it will be helpful. So we have learned so many things about social psychology in this class, right? The critical thing is this: person and the situation. Everything you do, or everything other people are doing, is kind of interaction between the person factor and the situation factor, right? You did good or kind behavior. Why? You may be a kind person, or situation may demand you to behave very nicely, right? So it's always interaction between the person and the situation. But social psychology focuses on the situation factor, right? Not just because it's more interesting, but because people tend to ignore the situational factors, right? So we have this kind of bias, right? Aggressive people will do aggressive behavior. Someone made crazy move on highway. Why? Because he's crazy, right? But there may be some situational factors, right? So social psychology always emphasizes situational factors. So we have talked about situational determinants of behavior. Even today, when we talked about prisoners dilemma game, framing, whether it is introduced as a Wall Street game or community game, that made huge effect, that have huge impact on whether you cooperate or defend, right? So situational factor. The emphasis of situational factor is one thing I wanted to emphasize about social psychology. And then here is some example, right? So on the driver's license, you can see whether this person is a organ donor or not, right? So that's same for these European countries, right? You can agree to donate your organ, then there is some sign on your driver's license, right? Same for Europeans as well. And then this is the percentage of organ donors among drivers, right? Country like Austria, Belgium, almost perfect. Like every driver says that, oh, I agree to donate my organ, right? But some country like Germany, United Kingdom, not so much, right? Can you guess the reason why? So what? Fast drivers? Oh, less driving. So Germany, many drivers. How many do you think that? Oh, maybe Danish are bad. Probably it's not about personality. They're not their personality. The secret is this. In this country, when they apply for driver's license, they have to opt in order to be an organ donor. Are you agree to donate your organ? Then they have, that's opt in, right? But in this country, it's opt out. If you do not agree to be an organ donor, please check here, right? In this kind of country, if you wanted to be an organ donor, please check here, opt in and opt out. That simple difference makes huge difference like this, right? Suddenly, people in this country look a lot nicer than these people, right? Just simple difference. And it is not driven by person factor. It's driven by situational factors, right? How the same question is asked, right? Not just that, our interpretation may differ depending on situation. What is this? 13B. 13 or B, right? Here, it's 13, right? But here, it's B. Yeah. Exactly the same thing, but two different interpretations, depending on the situation. If this one is embedded in this kind of context, without doubt, without any doubt, it is 13, right? But the same object is embedded in this kind of context. It's clear that it is B. There is no ambiguity here, right?
I mean, it could still be the 13, but that's what your brain thinks. Your brain thinks it's B.
You may have certain doubt when you see this, maybe it's a 13, especially after you assert this, right? But without any prior knowledge, when we say the word out, probably look like B. So simple thing like this, the interpretation of simple object like this can be heavily influenced by situation. Then how about all those ambiguous things, right? Someone made bad movement or just changed the line unsafe way on a highway. How can you interpret that, right? It all depends on the situation. Right? So the position you take or the situation you are in, it all influences your judgment and your behaviors. Right? So we are good reasoner, or our reasoning is good, okay, reasonably good, but it is not perfect. So we do have lots of bias. One of them is self-serving bias, right? Everyone wants to see themselves in a positive way, right? And that's true. Everyone see themselves more positive way. So we do have motivation like this. So if you got good score in developmental psychology, but not in social psychology, then you can still argue that, oh, I'm not good at psychology. I'm good at psychology. Why? Because developmental side is the essence of psychology and effectively ignoring the poor score in social side. But if you got the good score in social side, but bad score in developmental side, still you can claim that, oh, I'm good at psychology because essence of psychology is in social side and in developmental side, right? So in this way, you can maintain positive self-views, right? If you made bad move in a highway, obviously you have an emergency, right? But some other drivers, they made crazy move. They are crazy, right? So self-serving bias. And then we are not consciously lying. We genuinely believe that we are better than average, right? And then to some extent, it's good to have this positive view, right? People with slightly positive view about themselves tend to be happier, tend to work hard. I mean, if you believe that you are capable, then you will work hard, even in the presence of initial setback, right? But if you believe that you are not good, then you don't even try, right? Then obviously your performance will suffer. Right? So having positive view is good. Right? And then it's okay, more than okay. Actually, it's good, right? But still, it's informative to understand that our view about ourselves may be biased, right? It's important to admit that. Probably, if you do that, probably less conflict with other people. Right? Just admitting that you may be wrong, that's kind of good solution to many kinds of problems. So here, we have motivation. Because of that motivation, we may be wrong, right? We are motivated to see ourselves in a positive way. But sometimes our motivation is to be accurate. So we do not have any biased motivation. Even then, we can make an error, right? Throughout this semester, we have talked about a lot of cognitive biases. Most of them are related to the fact that we do not have enough information. Some of the information, we do not have any access to them. So our decision making is not perfect. Even when we want it to be very accurate. For example, getting back to this highway example, someone made a crazy move. You don't know whether he or she has emergency or not, right? And then you don't even know whether that's typical for that driver or not. You just have this one-shot behavior. That's the only available information you have, right? Decisions based on not so perfect information probably will be not so perfect, right? Then thinking about other people. You can observe others' behavior, right? But you do not have any direct access to their intention. So what you have to do is making inferences. Right? And then inferences based on insufficient information. So your inference, more often than not, are not accurate. Sometimes biased. So we talked about confirmation bias, fundamental attribution error, and a lot of them, right? So even when we want it to be accurate, we want it to be fair, sometimes we can make errors. And then finally we talked about unconscious or self-conscious processes, right? In our first class, we talked about this, right? This illusion, right? They do have exact same length, but still this one looks longer than this one, right? Why? Because our eyes or our brain automatically calculate three-dimensional depth, right? So this is further away, this is closer to you, so if they have same length, and this one has to be longer because it's further away from you. The thing that is closer to you tends to look larger than it is, right? Right? But without any conscious awareness on your part, your brain is just calculating that three-dimensional depth, right? As a result, this one looks longer than this one, right? And then you don't even know whether your brain is calculating that or not, right? What you can see is just, okay, one is longer than the other, right? So some of the information is processed automatically without any conscious awareness. And then it influences our information processing, our decision making, and our behavior, right? So sometimes you can choose one thing over the other, even when you don't know why. So people tend to tell more than they can know, right? Not just we did that as well, right? So that's another thing I wanted to know. So sometimes our information processing is imperfect. Okay. So basically there are lots of reasons to be humble, right? That's kind of lesson from this class, right? We have this bias, we have motivation, we have errors in our cognitive system, and some of the information is unconsciously automatically processed. So there are a lot of reasons to be wrong, right? So, but I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your judgment, right? You are making fast judgment given the amount of information you have, right? But you have to admit that that decision or that judgment may not be perfect. So sometimes we have some bias, right? So social psychology is about situation, but it is subjective situation, not the objective situation, right? Same class, so many different interpretations, right? So someone think it is interesting, someone maybe it's boring, so it is not objective situation, it's your interpretation, right? And then it is about ordinary people, right? We are talking about us, not specialized group of people, right? And then ordinary behavior. We are talking about persuasion, interpersonal liking, what else? Decision making, all those things we are doing multiple times every day, right? So you can say social psychology is science of everyday life. And then hopefully you can learn many things from this class and that your everyday life become better than before. And then one thing I can give one tip I can give you is this. So one assumption we have is this: being good leads to doing good. Good people will do good behavior. Aggressive people will do aggressive behavior, right? That's true, but the other way around is also true, right? We talked about cognitive dissonance theory, right? If you like Pepsi over Coke, then probably you will decide to drink Pepsi over Coke, right? But the other way around is also true. If you drink Pepsi over Coke, then you end up liking Pepsi, right? So happy people will come to the class regularly, will meet people and interact with others, or will do all those things that may make people happier, right? But the other way around is also true. If you do all those behaviors, then you will be happier, right? Regular exercise, hardworking, focusing, all those things can make you happier. So you can be good by doing good, right? So sometimes it's really difficult to change our attitude, right? But you can change your small behaviors, right? And from that on, your attitude will change accordingly. So remember this, right? Everyone can be good by just doing good. Small little things. And then that's it. That's it. And the final exam. So
Very good, Professor.
everyone understands that there are key terms, right? You can find this on the e-learning website, right? There are about 40 key terms, right? All you have to do is memorize them as it is, right? And there are several questions about this. We don't have to write down definition, right? I will provide the definition, then you will write down the key term, not the other way around.
Do you have a word bank or we have to memorize?
So there are definitions in the textbook, right? Like this. So
I mean, on the test, if you write down some definition, will there be?
no. Just the definition, then you just write it down, right?
No, the key terms.
Will you give us that list on the test though?
Like
a
on the
word
side?
bank.
Like a word
No.
bank?
That's
No?
what I was asking.
You have to.
You have to know it.
Right. You have to. And then I know that you can make errors. So the typo,
Sure.
depending on the type of typo, but most of the case, I'm fine with any kind of
On
typos.
Monday,
But
it's my
synonyms,
friend Tim,
Yeah, I got
so
it.
I'm just like,
probably
but I will
not
get to
good,
it this
right?
weekend.
So for example, some word like
Thank you so
homogeneity
much.
effect,
You're a
you can
lifesaver.
make errors, right? So it's big words, so you
So I
can
was
make
looking at
errors,
this right
but
now.
outgroup similarity effect,
You're on
probably
the
not,
side setting
right?
it. Does it look hard? So, is this test also going to be He's got it. scanned?
Yeah, there are 25 multiple choice questions as well. So you need to bring the Scantron as well.
But this part we won't have, right?
Yeah, you have to write on the exam.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Do you want me to stick one?
25. Yeah,
It's okay. We'll do
in the
that.
exam there are 25.
Thank you so
And
much.
then here, so 25 out of 40. Right? 25 out of 40. Yeah, you're correct. 4 chapters, 11, 12, 13, 14.
And so even though we have a final,
Right?
in Galaxy, there's an actual final.
Yeah, there is no final exam other than the exam on next Tuesday.
Got it.
It's still out of like, it's still graded out of 45, right?
Right. Although there are 50 questions, the perfect score will be 45 again. So again, you can have 5 additional points. Other questions? Well, if you have questions, please ask now.
Please ask now.
You can just send me an email. It is just one email for you, but it can be like 110 emails for me. It's really
notes from the
No. It's just right. But this time, most questions are from the overlap between the lecture slide and textbook. Let me put it here. So some of the things I didn't talk about, right? Some of the things that is included in the book, but I did not talk about in the class, right? So it's safe not to study it. Does it make sense?
So, I told you. Because when I was reading the book, I was like, he went over all of this. So I was like,
Right. That's true, but
oh wait, no. What?
I took something that is not on the text, on the lecture slide itself. But if you were in the class, then probably you can come up with the correct answer.
Okay. Yes. There you go. I have all of them listed. This will be our
Other
sixth.
question?
Okay.
Okay, guys, then that's it. Good luck with your test.